It looked like it started right on the edge of town, kind of an area between the Little League field and our propane farm. So I don't really know for sure or what would have started it.
A bad situation we've been following all day. Right now at 8 o'clock, a town in Yavapai County is burning up in flames. People in the town of Bagdad, Arizona have been forced to leave their home. Here's some of the pictures that have been coming into our newsroom. This wildfire is really moving through that town. At last check, Royal, 25 homes burned to the ground.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast this went from a brush fire just outside of the city limits to a full-blown fire moving through town.
With no crazy winds either.
Not really. The winds were fairly mild during most of the afternoon hours. The fire did go uphill, so it worked up slope in a little bit of a, it's not a mountainous area there, but it did work uphill. But the amazing thing was, there was no wind, but it was so super dry that it just ran through some of the brush there.
So unfortunate for the folks. 25 families. We don't know how many people that is.
At least 25 families impacted, maybe more. So Tiffany Davila, who is a spokesperson for Arizona Forestry, is joining us on the phone right now, and she's been following this fire since it started. Tiffany, can you first just start with the basics, when this was first reported to you folks and when you started to make your moves up there to fight this fire?
Hi, so it was reported about 3 o'clock this afternoon. It was called in at about 5 to 10 acres, and it's now about 150 acres. So it did quickly spread, as you said earlier, through that dry vegetation. And the entire state is pretty much dealing with dry vegetation, drought-stricken vegetation, and a lack of precipitation. So that's really what fueled this fire, was that dry fuel.
And so the question is, as you know, there wasn't much wind, but it was super, super dry up there. This is one of the worst fires we've had in terms of destruction of homes and structures in such a short period of time, in quite some time in Arizona, is it not?
It's one of the worst, yes. Unfortunately, and again, I don't know how this fire started. We did order a fire investigator. But if you do have a fire that starts within private property, if let's say someone's using some type of equipment and it gets into that dry fuel bed, chances are it's going to start very quickly and spread very rapidly past the point of self-suppression where that homeowner can easily put that fire out on their own. And then in this case, we've got a fire that's burning from home to structure to structure to structure. So, in the wildland and then within this community. So that's what we were dealing with. We were dealing with the wildland aspect of it and then the structural aspect of it as well.
So let me just be clear. So the fire apparently started on private property?
I do not know that. I was using that as an example.
Okay.
We have ordered a fire investigator.
Gotcha.
That's just what state jurisdiction is private and state land. So we tend to see on our jurisdiction a lot of private property starts where there's a homeowner that's using some type of equipment that sparks into a dry fuel bed. So that's kind of where we start to see a lot of this structural damage, is when we have a fast-moving wildfire starting on private and moving into the realm of things.
Tiffany, Yetta here. I'm just wondering what the message is for folks who are watching, because I understand the people who have been evacuated were people who were, I believe it was north of Main Street.
Correct.
So people who are watching, who are still in this area, do you have a message for them tonight?
They are still under evacuation. We had about 15 people that received the go notification from the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. There's still some infrastructure damage. We do know that, along with the structural damage. Power is out. They had to de-energize the lines, and they just do that always on a fire in this situation when they're working in a residential or a neighborhood where there's power lines. It's a public and firefighter safety concern. So the lines are down. The phone lines were also out earlier. So right now, I do not know, and I've not heard when they would be able to go back to their homes. But if they can just stick it out, everybody is working as fast as they can to get everything restored and get people back into their homes in Baghdad.
And Tiffany, I'm hoping that the answer is no when I ask you this, but the last time you and I communicated, we were at 25 structures which had been impacted by this fire, 25 homes. Has that number changed tonight? And if it hasn't changed, is it just because there hasn't been another count made?
So, right, the answer is no. It's actually 13, and that's the final count. So when they're in this situation and they're trying to assess property damage, they're really, sometimes they're not in that subdivision because they're just looking at it. They can't get in there until it's safe. So they were saying 25. There was actually 13 primary homes destroyed.
All right.
and at least 10 secondary structures.
All right, that's a good update. We appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time with us as this fire continues to burn tonight in Baghdad. I want to show you a couple of maps for you. Well, we're going to start out with some video from the news chopper that was in the area. And yet, you and I were both on the air when this was happening. Yeah. It's just amazing how fast this moved through, even with people putting water on this fire.
And Royal, I got to ask, because we always talk about the winds when we are covering wildfires. Is it really just how dry it is out there that made this fire spread so quickly into so many homes?
It really is, and it's also the elevation. It's one of those mid-elevations that we really worry about sort of in the middle of the fire season before we get to later in the fire season, the next month or so, where our concern shifts to the higher elevations. But this is more of a mid-elevation, high desert, if you will, a lot of brush, a lot of, they did have a fire in the vicinity here last year, but it didn't burn any homes. So that was the very, very good news out of that. But today, of course, the story is much different tonight.
Unfortunate. Well, we've been talking about some of the efforts that they've made to put this fire out. We've got video of them doing water drops. They used a pool, a city pool out there. Yeah,
they did. It was amazing. Here's one of the DC-10s, the very large air tankers, as they call them, VLATs. That's just lingo I've picked up. But the cool thing is what they're able to do is lock the fire down on the edges of it. They can't drop in a neighborhood. They're not going to be doing that, but they'll lock the fire down so it doesn't escape their outside lines. And then, as you say, we saw the helicopter with the Bambi bucket dipping into pools and taking water and putting it again directly on some of the fire areas that were just outside of the town as they were dropping this. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, we are. They're doing everything they can. They're using every resource that they can to get this thing under control. Even though there are 13 homes, Royal, that she just clarified, it is better news that it wasn't 25, because that's what we've been reporting.
And it is, and we hope it stays at that
let's
number.
Hope so, yeah.
And we hope there's no injuries, and boy, we sure hope. And we know, it's a tight-knit community. Those folks are going to pull together up there, and it's just an amazing day, kind of a stunning day, and one that we've been fearing for quite some time as the state has been so dry. Want to set you up on the Spur Fire. This is Baghdad. Here's the Little League field in Lindal, and Lindal, the fire actually burned across Lindal. Main Street right there kind of runs to the northwest in the center of the city. So this fire actually moved up to the northeast, and tonight the areas of concern were up to the northeast, where this is the area where we saw some homes destroyed and some outbuildings damaged as the fire moved rapidly on this dry brush and popped up there. And what you can't see topography-wise is this is all uphill. So it was burning right up these sort of up these hills toward these homes. So in a sense, once the fire got going, there wasn't much of a chance. Now, we want to leave you with a glimmer of good news for the rest of tonight. Light winds, light and variable, not much wind at all the rest of tonight. Temperatures in the 50s. That's good news. Now, we hope we get this thing kind of not controlled, it won't be, but contained at least by tomorrow morning, because tomorrow afternoon winds are going to be in the range of 10 to 15 with gusts to 20. It's going to be in the 90s again, and that's a little bit tenuous. So good news though, Yetta, tonight is the firefighters should have the weather advantage here for at least the next 12 hours or so.
And this is, I've never been to Baghdad, Arizona, but this is a small community, 2,000 people or so. And we're hoping they are banding together tonight because, man, a lot is going on out there.
It's been an amazingly tragic day.
Yeah, our thoughts are with all the families. Earlier tonight, Royal, we did speak with a resident who had to pick up everything and leave. As we told you, evacuation orders are major out there. He had to leave with his family and their pets.
I was sleeping, getting ready for work. We night shifter, and my wife woke me up and said, "Hey, there's a fire." We went out and checked it out. That was around, I guess, about, I'm not even sure, around 2:30, 3 o'clock. And we were just checking things out. The Freeport-McMoran that owns the mine, they have an emergency notification system that kept us apprised of what was going on and told us when to evacuate. evacuated and went to a friend's house in Hillside.
And again, if you're just joining us, we are covering the Spur Fire that is burning in a town called Bagdad, Arizona. Shelter has been set up for anybody who has been forced out of their homes because of this fire. It is at Hazayampa Elementary School in Wickenburg. If you live or if you travel through the town of Bagdad, keep in mind State Routes 96 and 97 have both been shut down because crews are working very hard to contain this fire tonight. We've got crews arriving in this town right now. They've been making calls. They're talking to people who have been evacuated out there. We're going to have live reports coming from them. That's coming up on the news at 9 and 10, so stick around. You can also stay up to date on this fire through our free AZ Family News app.